everyone, and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. Today, we will discuss two articles. Both the articles are from the Indian Express. The first article is titled as The Power to Discriminate. This article talks about the 102nd Amendment, which talked about the SEBCs, which were the socially and economically backward classes, and also the power of the government, whether the central or the state government, to determine as to who would fall in this class. The second article is again from the Indian Express, which is titled as How Fertilizer Subsidy Works. So currently, the government has promised to give in more subsidy for the fertilizers. So how does this entire system work and why has this step been taken by the government will be discussed in this article. And finally, we have the News in Flash column. This newspaper analysis is being presented by me. My name is Sheva Khan, and I am a law graduate and had completed my law degree from Uttaranchal University in the year 2019. I have been a national debater and a public speaker, and here at LawSikho, I work as the current affairs expert and manager for free content and outreach. If you wish to connect with me, you can always find me on my Twitter as well as LinkedIn handles. Let's discuss that what is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. National Anti-Terrorism Day is observed on. Your options are 21st May, 23rd May, 5th June, or 15th December. If you know the answer, you can put it down in the comment section below. This is the descriptive question for the day. What was the 102nd Constitutional Amendment? Discuss in detail. On this note, let's start our discussion for the first article of the day, which talks about the Supreme Court's decision on 102nd Constitution Amendment Act. So recently, the Union government has filed a review petition in the Supreme Court decision by 3-2 bench that held that 102nd Constitutional Amendment has taken away power of the states to identify and prepare list of the SEBCs. So what happened was that the 102nd Amendment in the year 2018 gave sweeping powers to the central government to decide and identify the people and the communities that would fall under the list of SEBCs, which was the socially and economically backward classes. Through this amendment of 102nd one, the power of the states was taken away whatsoever to identify and prepare this list. So let's understand that what was the power of the states to identify the SEBCs. So the states exercising the power since 20th century. So we should note that the states had been exercising this power to identify and prepare the list of socially and economically backward classes since the early period of the 20th century. And since 1920s in the Madras Presidency, Mysore, Bombay, and Travancore Cochin areas, all of these areas, the states had the power to identify and prepare this list. Then in the case of State of Madras versus Srimati Champakam Durai Rajan of 1951, it was declared as unconstitutional the power of Madras Presidency to fix quota of seats in medical colleges. So perhaps this was for the first time in the year 1951 via the means of Champakam Durai Rajan case that the power of the Madras Presidency to fix this quota in the seats of medical colleges was taken away. And according to the First Amendment of 1951, after the Constitution of India came into power, it inserted Article 15, Clause 4, which also is a fundamental right, that empowered the states to make special provisions for the advocacy and for the betterment of the SEBCs. Then in the case of Mungeri Lal Commission in Bihar, it recommended the state government to provide for 26% of reservation to the other backward classes. And the central list of central jobs was introduced after 1992 Indira Sohani judgment. So we have been seeing that though the state used to enjoy the power to determine and fix the list and prepare the list for the SEBCs, but currently via the means of the 102nd Amendment, a lot of this power has been taken away from the states. Let's discuss the 102nd Amendment in detail. So according to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, it inserted Article 342A, Clause 1 and Clause 2 that did not interfere with the power of the state government to identify SEBCs. The power of the parliament to identify the SEBCs is in reference to the central list. So here it says that the intention behind the amendment is to safeguard the interest of these socially and educationally backward classes more effectively and to create and confer the National Commission for Backward Classes with constitutional status at par with National Commission for SCs and STs. One thing that we need to note here is that the National Commission for SCs, that is the scheduled caste, and the National Commission for the scheduled tribes, both of these enjoyed the constitutional status. But that was not the case when it came to the National Commission for backward classes. But it was after the 102nd Amendment that the NCBC was also adored with the constitutional status. And further, Article 342A was inserted into this in order to do this. So if we try to understand as to what does Article 342 of the Constitution, Clause 1 and 2 say, so it says that the President may, with respect to any state or union territory, and where it is a state, after consultation with the governor thereof, by means of a public notification, specify what? He would be specifying the socially and educationally backward classes which shall for the purpose of this constitution be deemed to be socially and educationally backward classes in relation to that particular state or union territory or as the case may be. So please consider that here the SEBCs are the socially and educationally backward classes, and we had a separate amendment for the economically weaker section quota. So please consider the SEBC stand for the socially and educationally backward classes. And here, the clause 2 of Article 342A of the Constitution states that the Parliament may by law include or exclude from the central list of socially and educationally backward classes specified in a notification issued under clause 1 any socially and educationally backward classes, and so on and so forth. So basically here this Article 342A clause 1 empowers the president to include something into the list, and it gives under clause 2 the power to the parliament to exclude someone from this particular central list. So this actually says that the power of the states has been severely curtailed after this amendment, because majorly the powers have been driven towards the president and the parliament, which definitely are the central forces. With this, let's discuss the second article of the day, which talks about the fertilizer subsidy. So recently, the central government has announced a 137% increase in the subsidy on diammonium phosphate, which is very commonly known as the DAP, which is one of the most commonly used fertilizers in the Indian agricultural system. So the central government has announced an increase of that to 137%. So here we need to understand as to what is the system of subsidy, why at all the subsidy is given on the fertilizers, and why the government has given this increase in the subsidy. So if we talk about particularly the diammonium phosphate fertilizer, which is commonly known as the DAP, it is the second most commonly used fertilizer in India after urea. So please remember that urea is the most highly used fertilizer in the country. And after that, we have the DAP, which is the diammonium phosphate. So it is applied before or either during the sowing period takes place. And it contains 46% of phosphorus and 18% nitrogen, and wherein we know that urea is one of the major providers for the nitrogen to the soil. And the DAP stimulates root establishment and development, and thus it makes sure that better output or better growth of the plants or in the fields or basically of the agricultural products takes place. So what is the role of the subsidy? Basically what happens is that, for example, there is a fertilizer. Let's say in this example, we take the example of DAP, which is the diammonium phosphate. So when this particular fertilizer is manufactured by a particular factory or a particular industry, so definitely there is some price of that manufacturing. Let's say that for 1 kg of this DAP, the manufacturing cost is rupees 50. That is only for example purpose, all right? So if the manufacturing cost of DAP is rupees 50 per kg, and the cost, that is retail price of DAP, let's say is 80 rupees per kg. So wherein the government or wherein the fertilizer producing company or industry or factory earns a profit, or it includes the various things regarding the transportation, storage, and etc. So all these costs are included, and thus there is a gap of this 30 rupees which we can see, because the manufacturing price was rupees 50, but what the farmer has to pay ultimately through the retail market for 1 kg of DAP, let's say for example, is rupees 80. So what subsidy does is that the subsidy covers the difference between the cost of manufacturing or import and the fixed MRP. So what happens is that here the farmer would be able to avail that particular fertilizer on the manufacturing price itself, and anything above that manufacturing price shall be covered by the government under the name of subsidy. So that means if at all 50 rupees was the manufacturing price for 1 kg DAP and 80 rupees was the price for the retail, so here 30 rupees, which was the gap, would be paid by the government as subsidy. So here the subsidy is fixed, the MRPs are variable. So what happens is that the government fixes the percentage of subsidy that it would pay on a particular commodity. And thus the MRPs, which is the maximum retail price, may vary, but according to the percentage of the subsidy that the government has promised, the prices will be fixed, at the end price basically will be fixed, that the farmer will have to pay. So now let's understand that why at all the central government has taken this decision to increase the subsidy in the fertilizers, and especially for diammonium phosphate. So the first reason is that the global prices of both the final product as well as the raw materials have increased in the past 6-7 months. So ultimately, this definitely will lead to a higher cost of manufacturing of DAP, and thus there will be higher maximum retail price as well. And that is why, as we just discussed, that the MRPs may vary, and accordingly the government promises some percentage of subsidy on a particular product. So that is why the government has also offered an increased percentage of subsidy on the DAP. And the second, that the Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative, that is IFCO, hiked the MRP of DAP by around 65% with effect from April. And that is why, to accommodate this particular hike, the central government has also offered this increase in the subsidy. So this was all for the lengthy articles of the day. Let's discuss what do we have for news and flash today. First, India warns WhatsApp of legal action. So the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has asked WhatsApp to roll back its latest update in privacy policy, and on failure to do so has warned it of all legal actions available to protect the sovereign rights of the citizens. As we know that this WhatsApp privacy policy has also been into news. If at all you wish to go through the WhatsApp privacy policy, we have an entire analysis video available on the LawSikho channel, so you can go through that as well. Second, SUNDERLAL BHAGUNA dies of COVID-19. So the man behind Chipko movement, basically he was an eco-activist, which means he was a very prominent and eminent environmentalist who spent his life persuading and educating the villagers to protest against the destruction of forest and Himalayan mountains. And he was very popularly known for the Chipko movement, and his slogan was "Ecology is the permanent economy," which is absolutely so appropriate. And thirdly, INS Rajput decommissioned. So the Kashin class destroyer and the first warship to be fitted with long-range BrahMos missile was decommissioned after 41 years of service. It was built by erstwhile USSR in 1980 and has sailed a distance of over 787,000 nautical miles. That is equivalent to navigating the world 36.5 times, which is huge. So we are done for the day. We hope it was a good session for you all. Please subscribe to our channels for such more updates to come. Thank you so much.